So good afternoon, everybody here in the room and online. My name is Oliver Stenzel. I'm representing ScanBalt, a meta-cluster organization in the Baltic Sea region, and I'm leading there the digital working group. And it's a pleasure for me and the whole ScanBalt team that we could have this interesting session now as a final point of a, I think, really interesting eHealth week here in Tallinn and Tartu. And we are now dealing with the potential of artificial intelligence for Alzheimer's disease early diagnosis. I think it's relevant after all these theoretical debates to have a concrete indication where we can talk about and to show concretely what data artificial intelligence can bring to patients and patients of Alzheimer. I think all of you know the great burden that this disease brings to elderly people, but not only. We have a lot of young Alzheimer patients that are not diagnosed with normal diagnosis tools. And in Europe, as we have every day older getting population demographic problem, we will face Alzheimer as one of the main health challenges in the upcoming decade. So we have a big program. We have a lot of people here online. We have online participations and we have participants here in the room. So we have to deal with technical issues, but I think this will work easily. We start with presentations of each participant, more or less 10 minutes, and you have the possibility for direct questions. And then we will try to find time for 20 minutes to have a final discussion round where I invite all of you to actively participate. We will start with Doreen from University Hospital Medical Center in Rostock. Doreen, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we still not see you, but we can hear you. Doreen, you work on the project Kadas, Clinical AI-Based Diagnostics. We already heard about this project yesterday, where Thomas gave us a really brilliant overview about this complex project. And now we can go into details with your presentation. The project aims to develop a clinical decision support platform that is based on artificial intelligence and improves the diagnosis of diseases such as Alzheimer. Doreen, now we see you. Hello. And please start with your presentation about your research activities.
Yeah, thank you very much for the warm welcome. I hope you can also see my slides now.
Yes, we can see them.
Very good. So I'm focusing on the clinical perspective of AI in the use, especially in the neurology department, because my background is that I am a neurologist and a researcher at the University Medicine in Rostock, as well as at the DZNE in Rostock. I'm not sure if you know, this is a very widespread center to study neurodegenerative diseases in Germany with an internationally known publication list. So I will step into it if my slides give me the chance. Yes. So the results that I'm showing you are part of our KaiDX project, which means Clinical Artificial Intelligence-Based Diagnostics. It's made from 13 partners from 7 countries, also partners from Estonia. And within our consortium, there are 5 clinics. And we are kind of in the middle of the project because we hope to finalize our actions in December 25. And we are looking at AI tools in general and in the different phases, development, validation, and especially the implementation phase. So the results I'm showing here you now are from literature review as well as from an own interview study. And I want to summarize what is the motivation to use AI in patient care. And I think it's 3 major topics that we address here. It's the increase of work efficiency. So, of course, this means we want to scale productivity, do more examinations in the same time, be able to care for more patients, for example. And the other question is, can we reduce costs by using AI tools? And I put this question mark behind there because it's very debatable if you consider the developmental costs for good and useful AI. And there is also a topic to discuss when we focus on the reimbursement, because for now, AI as itself has no added value that we can compensate with respect to money in the clinic, but still the hope is that maybe in the second run that you have less other examinations because you have the results or the answers of your questions in one examination, which is supported by AI. Maybe you can reduce costs. The second motivation is increasing the quality of treatment. Of course, as a physician, this is a very important motivation for us. We want to increase the diagnostic accuracy. We want to be able to use our tools more individually. And finally, we want to improve patient outcome. And a lot of physicians mentioned this in the interviews that we've done. The optimization of the framework is also a very relevant topic, because a lot of clinicians, not just the physicians, also from the care units, they really feel the need to reduce the administrative work. And that is also why I put here this image on the right-hand side, because I guess we will use in the future a lot of AI tools that we have in daily life, also for our work life, not really focused or specific to clinical use cases, but for example, using virtual assistants or language translators is a very common thing for us, especially in research. And I guess also in a clinical environment, it will be routine in the future. And one of the topics that is mentioned also in the interviews is to enhance the staff satisfaction by using AI tools. For example, a radiologist, he's really not keen to report 200 times a day the results from an X-ray scan of the chest. It's a very easy task. It's highly repetitive. It doesn't make sense to use expert to do this. And this is something that you can imagine that it's easily done by an AI tool, because it's an easy task, like I said, highly repetitive. And if the clinician can focus on the more complex things, it would enhance maybe staff satisfaction. So the general source from the physician with respect to the requirements, I want to highlight this here. And I think you could summarize it with the 5 following points. Of course, I think everybody can feel that correctness is a very important thing. But, and this was really interesting to see in the interviews, all of the clinicians telling you we need certificates, we need a kind of a stamp on it, it's validated, and then they are willing to use it. If it's a CE labeled, everything is fine, but they actually don't know how certificates are made and what the validation process includes. And also they are not really interested in being part of it, but they definitely want to have the certificate, and they think it's more trustworthy if it's certified. I think it's also a very debatable point from the viewpoint of a businessman who knows what it means to certificate a product. The integration into the workflow was mentioned many times, so they just want to have it within their environment. They don't want to use the third app or program that they need to start and so on. I guess you know what I mean. The usability should be really high. In the best case, it's even fun to use this application, but no one wants to have a 3 days workshop to getting used to use such a program. It needs to be robust from the technical viewpoint. This means no technical errors. It's doing its job every time I start it. And I think this is the most specific point with respect to AI compared to other technologies. Explainability was mentioned many times, and physicians are a special experts in some points. And if you try to explain what your AI tool does with the way that it's done here on the left-hand side at the bottom of the slide, I wish you good luck. I think it's maybe better to use an approach like seen here on the right-hand side, that you kind of show it's a filtering process and there is an outcome, a quantitative outcome, for example, that your network model is showing an 89% value for the scan showing Alzheimer's disease. And it's adding you a visualization, a relevance map, which parts of the brain of an image scan contributed to the 89%. And I just gave you this reference here because it's a really great publication where I think everything that's important is already said. Maybe you can save it somewhere and just ask me for the link. It's really great if you need some scientific references. So to show you as non-physicians, what are we doing in Alzheimer's in early diagnostics? So Alzheimer's patients suffer from atrophy. This means the volume of the brain tissue is decreasing over the time. And the problem here is that brain atrophy is a very normal process in aging, but also in dementia. And the question is, if it's just aging or if it's due to dementia and Alzheimer's, if we see an atrophy. And we're using structural imaging, so MRI scans, magnet resonance imaging, to have slides of the brain in vivo. This means with vivid patients, we are able to look at the brain volume. And today it's kind of a look into the past of an individual. So if the tissue is decreased, then we can see it. But if we are using AI tools, maybe we can detect atrophy patterns that are more specific to Alzheimer's. For example, what we can see here now is one of the use cases from our colleagues who's developing this explanation net, and he's giving you the relevance maps. So he's showing you what data is used to get to this point, the value, the risk of Alzheimer's, but he's also showing you the relevance maps, so the actual parts of this specific scan that contributed to this value, and this is based on AI. Just to give you some other ideas how AI could be used in dementia diagnosis, I think Nicklas, who's with you today, will show you some more data about his phone bot that he's using, or his company, for cognitive screening. And they are using an established test for memory assessment that we do face-to-face here with our patients in the consultation hours. And the AI tool does not only analyze the cognition, the specific thing here is that it's also analyzing the speech, what we are not doing when we face the patient and ask how many words they remembered. So it's a really interesting approach, and something that is more on the horizon here is the handwriting analysis that I think is very interesting, because it's you can imagine that it's a part of your daily life. And AI tool is using just simply things that are already there. Problem here is, for now, that we have no accepted standard experimental protocol to collect such data. So there's kind of a lack of large data sets for now, but there are a lot of publications, increasingly numbers, with machine learning approaches that reach high accuracies in distinguishing handwriting from AD patients with healthy controls. And I just conclude with the following. We have a lot of chances, but also facing a lot of challenges using AI for Alzheimer's diagnostics. So the chances are that we have early and more precise diagnosis and the reduction of efforts that are required to get to it, hopefully also better treatments. But of course, there are a lot of implications with respect to ethical concerns. Also not just using the AI tool itself, also what does it mean if we have earlier diagnosis? In the case of AD, do we have just longer illness right now, or do we have some other treatments? With respect to the implementation, we're facing a lot of problems because clinical environments are highly complex IT systems, and the requirements that we could see here are not that easily to implement. As I mentioned, the workflow integration or also the reimbursement is not answered right now. And as I also highlighted, the trustworthiness is connected with the explainability, and those are some challenges that are more specific to AI tools. And I hope this was a nice start and give us some points to discuss in the letter.
Thank you very much, Doreen. Yes, this was really great, and thank you so much for your crystal clear conclusion. There were some aspects inside that we will pick up in the discussion round at the end. I noted some words like certification, acceptance, and regulation, where we can talk later in detail about. Yeah, Doreen, you already put Nicklas on the spot. So Nicklas, happy to have you here with us. You are also from Germany. You are CEO of the company SCAI Elements. The company offers a software solution that is based on AI and enables early detection of Alzheimer and other cognitive diseases by analyzing speeches. And yeah, we are really keen to hear more about it. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you, Oliver. I'm just going to grab this and see if they can put up my slides. Perfect. But thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Nicklas. I'm the founder and CEO of SCAI Elements. We are a digital biomarker company, so we work on developing new technologies that help us.
This is an interview with General.
Okay.
David Petro.
So we work on developing technologies that help us kind of find signals where medicine currently doesn't find signals, or at least not objective signals. And for us, a source of digital biomarkers is speech, so how people talk generally. That's something that if physicians are in the room, that physicians use for their general impression. We use that in kind of diagnostic testing, but more in a subjective way, right? How I have an impression of a patient, how I think disease might impact them, where we are trying to find objective measures that are in patient speech that can tell us something about their cognitive health, but also other aspects of diseases. So if we think about how speech is produced, and I have a slide about this, which is not this slide. That's your slides, right? Yeah, perfect. Perfect, here we go. That's us. And if we think about how speech is produced, it really starts in our brains. So it starts by us wanting to communicate something, having an intent to say something. And we have to produce the content of what we want to say on a semantic level. We also have to determine the sentiment with which we want to socially communicate something. And then a process starts where different organs are involved in actually producing the voice that comes out in the end. And that's all kind of controlled by our brains. So if that signal is given, our lungs have to produce airflow to produce the voice. We have our vocal cords that have to vibrate, and they have to close and open at the exact right time. And then we have over 200 different muscles in our face that have to move and contract at the right time. Our tongue has to move so that we have speech that makes sense, so that someone can understand, and that also is intelligible in the end. And if anything goes wrong in that process, and that might be because our brains aren't working anymore correctly, or we can't control our facial muscles anymore, then what we're doing is we're trying to see what comes out at the other end, measure that with microphones, and then try to trace back what went wrong on the way. And this, of course, has applications in multiple different disease areas. So we're talking about Alzheimer's today as one of the big areas. It's one of the most common diseases that affects cognitive health in general, that affects our brains. But there are, of course, other indications of the central nervous system that affect cognition as a symptom. So the ability to think, so multiple sclerosis would be one of those. There are other aspects of things we can measure in voice. So if we think about speech motor activity, that's often linked to general motor ability. So it's the same kind of nervous system that's involved in this. So having control over our tongues and so on correlates with being able to walk, for example. So that's something we see in people with ALS or Parkinson's disease. As the disease progresses, these people have problem communicating, not because their cognitive ability to communicate or forming the sentiment doesn't work anymore, but because they can't control their speech production organ anymore correctly. We have all the diseases that affect our mood state, so generally referred to as mood disorders. So that might be depression, which is a very common one, but also schizophrenia, where we also find that social communication is just hindered in these diseases. So these people might not be able to communicate correctly anymore, but we also see that aspects of speech production, like their pitch levels, like normally when you talk, there's variation in pitch, you communicate some sort of sentiment that is disturbed in these diseases. And lastly, anything that affects lung function and respiratory disease. So if the airflow can't be produced correctly anymore, either in normal conditions or in conditions where I'd be under stress, or I might have to perform functions of daily living. So I got up off that chair. For me, that was easy. I can still talk. If I might have severe emphysema in COPD, that might already be a problem for me to produce that airflow in my lungs. And I want to keep it short today. I would just want to bring you the example of how we use our technology in Alzheimer's today. So we mainly work with life science and pharmaceutical companies in clinical research, not because that's the best application of the technology, but it's the closest application to the technology that exists in business models today, is selling to life science companies. And in Alzheimer's disease, we apply this in clinical trials and have a technology we call SBC, which is this chatbot Doreen has presented to you before on a slide, which is an automated test for cognition that is speech-based. And patients can take that over a simple phone call. So not necessarily through a smartphone that works with any kind of landline phone, and it's an actual call where on the other end of the call, you have an automated chatbot walking you through and you producing speech doing that. And there are two kind of application areas in clinical trials we look at. One is pre-screening, meaning finding out patients that are likely to fit a trial. In Alzheimer's disease clinical research, we have a big problem, especially as research moves more to the silent phases of the disease. So think about not like 80-year-olds with lots of cognitive impairment. Think about 55 to 65-year-old people who don't know they have the disease, but have all the biomarkers of Alzheimer's disease. And if you want to do research in this population, and if you want to develop a vaccine or something that really attacks this disease very early before any damage was done, you have to find these people, and that's really challenging. So we deal with screen failure rates in these trials of 95%, meaning if you start the procedure and go through all the procedures, in the end, only 5% of people get enrolled into the trial. That's a used cost burden to research, that's a used time burden to how long it takes to develop and try new drugs, which most of the time fail. So what we do with our technology, because it is so scalable, we reach out to a wider population and say, well, let's take this 10-minute test. And based on this, we already make a decision. So either depending on the trial criteria to rule you in as like a patient that's likely to fit the inclusion criteria. Of course, it's not as good as an MRI or something, but it gives you a better idea. Or rule out someone to say, well, this person might be already slightly impaired, so they're unlikely to fit the inclusion criteria. And then through this, for example, in combination with blood-based biomarkers that are being developed for Alzheimer's disease, we can really take lots of the testing that usually happens over days in clinic with lots of very expensive and also, in many cases, painful equipment to something we can do in a person's home. And then if they're likely to fit these criteria, we get them into the clinic to do the extended testing, and thereby we reduce the timelines it takes to recruit these trials. And the second thing is outcome measures. So in clinical trials, we want to show that drugs work in the end. To do that, we need to be able to measure symptoms, and we need to be able to measure symptoms that patients really care about in the end. And we have to do that at a resolution that we can see a change between our placebo and our treatment arm. And if the changes are very small, we need markers that are very objective, that are very resilient to outside influences, and we don't have these days, because the tests we have for cognitive ability today are always dependent on the people who do the assessment, which in a global clinical trial can be hundreds of different people that might have certain biases in them. And on the other hand, they're limited to doing them, let's say, every 3 months when you have the patient in the clinic. But we all know that like there's so much daily variance about how we feel and how functioning we are, that really if you only have one measurement every 3 months, it might not be a good representation of how I'm functioning. So what we do is we take these measurements that are done in clinic and we put them in the patient's home, actually. And by that, we can do it at a much higher frequency, and we can look at averages over time and get a much more sensitive measure of how people are changing and can find much better treatment effects in earlier stages of the disease. Here are some references, and I'm looking forward to the panel discussion on this.
Thank you very much. Do we have some direct questions to Nicklas? If not, we can pick up some really interesting aspects in the discussion. Okay, now we change to virtual again. We have Professor Holger Froelich from the German Fraunhofer Institute for Algorithm and Scientific Computing. Holger, are you with us?
Yes,
Okay,
I can hear you, and maybe you can also see me.
We can hear you, but we do not. Now we see you. Hello.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Holger is coordinator of the project Predictum. This is an European project which develops artificial intelligence-based platforms that enable personalized prediction, for example, of Alzheimer's. You use digital twins in your research activities, and I ask for put this aspect, digital twins, in the focus of your presentation. I think this could be really interesting for our final discussion to have a deeper view on this instrument for research and perhaps patient treatment in the future. The floor is yours, Holger.
Yeah, thank you very much, Oliver, for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me. It's actually also great to talk directly after Nicklas, because we are just going to start a collaboration together. So I'm from the Fraunhofer Institute. So Fraunhofer is a translational research organization in Germany, which is strategically bridging between, let's say, more fundamental or basic research done in academia, typically in Germany at universities, and R&D in industry. So we kind of sit in the middle. And my own background is actually computer science, so I'm responsible for a AI and machine learning group, so which is in essence focused on addressing issues, problems, challenges in biomedicine. So I don't know how to move the slides now. Okay, thank you. So I want to start in essence with a little bit of a motivation by reflecting the current situation in Alzheimer's disease, so which at first place has some good news. So we have new drugs that have been recently, at least in the US, approved, antibodies. So these drug targets amyloid beta plaque formation, and they slow down symptom progression in a very early disease stage. And together with established biomarkers, so-called ATN biomarkers, this is, of course, a big chance at first place for Alzheimer's disease patients. So this is the good news. However, at the same time, there are also challenges with that. So one is so that we, of course, need to be able to diagnose patients then in a very early slash even prodromal or even preclinical stage to make these drugs successful. The other aspect has already been pointed out before, so and this is the overall increasing disease prevalence. So I just show here some figures on the very right-hand side here from the US. So where according to a very recent paper here, nowadays we have 7 million people already with diagnosed Alzheimer's disease. Again, a tendency very strongly increasing. So and along with that, of course, new treatments being available, there will be an expectation of an increasing number of people that are seeking for help. Yeah? So people that may at first place have maybe subjective cognitive impairments, but then of course like to go to a physician to have clarifications. So of course also these new medications are very costly. And one has to see so that overall the capacity of our current healthcare systems in most countries, Western countries, is simply not sufficient to broadly screen people with subjective cognitive impairments for a potential abnormality of these diagnostic and established biomarkers. So this is the situation that we are facing. So can you move on? So in essence, our project, Predictum, which started in November last year, so we are in a relatively early phase of this project, has in essence the mission to address this issue by, in essence, establishing for the future a kind of a stage-wise screening process. And for that, the idea is that we come up with a platform, really, an AI-assisted platform, which you can think about as a kind of digital twin of a patient. So the idea is, in essence, that we bring together along the journey, the typical journey of a patient, which starts, of course, at home, may at first place end up at a GP. So that's usually the first contact as a physician that you have. And then as a third step, maybe go or be referred to a neurologist in the clinic, so that we along this entire trajectory really systematically collect different data modalities. And we bring them together and store them on a dedicated platform. And we offer, in essence, at the same time, along this entire journey, specific AI models that predict the risk of the patients to have some sort of cognitive abnormality, or of course at later stages even dementia. So this is the entire idea and the overarching idea, and we hope so that by this established stepwise screening process, an earlier diagnosis overall can be established, and really we can make sure so that at the end of the day, in this last stage, only patients will be referred to the really having a dementia. So can you move on to the next slide, please? Of course, such an idea requires validation. And our idea here is to set up a clinical study, which in essence try to mimic this entire process so that I outlined on the previous slide as much as possible. So in essence, we call this a funnel, a recruitment funnel, so which the study mimics here. So at the very beginning of this funnel, we have a pool of about 45,000 participants, so that just by filling out an online assessment may have some sort of more or less subjective cognitive impairment. So however, by the help of specific AI-based risk scores, we can subselect 4,000 of those patients and then go to a further screening in which we look into different aspects of cognition. We collect salvia, we collect microbiome, and so on. And even out of those, we make a subselection, maybe more specifically those with, which have the highest risk, 400, and the lowest risk, 200, for which an even more detailed screening is performed, including standard testing by typical biomarkers that are established in the Alzheimer's field, such that at the end of the day, for this overarching pool, for a certain subset of patients, we have really a certain type of diagnostic staging available, and are therefore also able to validate the sensitivity and specificity of, let's say, biomarker modalities that have been collected at the beginning of the screening process. So if you move on to the next slide. So let me just give you some examples, in essence, of the type of tests that we conduct along this entire way of this stage-wise screening process across this funnel. So as already mentioned at the very beginning, in essence, everything starts with an online self-assessment, which a patient can actually do in front of her own computer. So and this is in essence a platform that's already up and running, so you can try it out for yourself if you want. So and it comprises different aspects, so cognitive functioning tasks, so more specifically the so-called flame battery, so then you can perform certain games there. You can also seek for advice in terms of lifestyle, and you can input data about medical history and mental health. If you go to the next slide, please. So furthermore, we offer different digital testing tools that can be used at home. So, and this, for example, includes an augmented reality game that you can perform at home and that assesses different functional abilities, spanning actually different dimensions also of what cognition at the end of the day is. And furthermore, via, for example, a simulated banking application, we try to assess abilities of daily activities, to how well patients can perform daily activities of living. These two examples have previously been tested in the previous IMI project, Radar AD, where they turned out to be relatively successful, and then therefore were selected also for our Predictome study. Furthermore, we also let people perform hearing tests because we know so that, for example, hearing problems are in a risk factor for dementia. So if you move on, please. So in addition to digital testing, we will also collect biofluids at home. So, and for that, we provide people with a certain test kit that they can take at home and register these test kits via an app. And then send back the blood and salvia and stool samples to a lab that, of course, in our case now is a partner of the project, and analyzes the according biofluids and generates data. You go to the next slide, please. So, of course, at the end of the day, a core aspect, and that's, of course, also, as mentioned in the beginning, my own background is the development of different types of machine learning models that help risk profiling at different stages. And of course, at the end of the day, along this patient journey, we generate really a lot of different types of data, so which I try to here comprise again in order to give some sort of idea. So based on these data, we will generate on one hand unimodal risk models, so data that solely rely on one specific data modality, but also models that combine different data modalities jointly. Moreover, there is also another type of model that is developed. So basically, given the aspect that at the very beginning here, when people sit at home, we have for most of the people actually no diagnosis available, because due to this funnel, only a small subset of patients is intended actually to ever be diagnosed with typical ATN biomarkers. However, what we can do for these people for which we have no diagnosis available is in essence to see in how far they are abnormal relative to people at the same age. So this is something that's called a normative model, and which we are also developing in this project. So if you go on to the next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of more detail now for the situation that a patient may at some point enter the clinic. So at this point, of course, also different types of data can be collected and are collected. And in the past, we have actually for this purpose developed already a risk model. So that includes here or combines different data modalities. So for example, neuropsychological tests, brain imaging, and also certain genetic variants. And then with the help of machine learning, what you can do is you can, in essence, for a given patient, then estimate the risk to develop or the diagnosis dementia X month looking in the future. And this type of model is actually also being externally validated by a separate study, and demonstrated quite nice forecasting or prognostic performance of about 80% 6 years prior to diagnosis. So that means, in essence, it is actually possible to say, even for those patients which come to the clinic and which are still in a very early prodromal phase, when would they more likely to convert to a real dementia? And therefore, also among those people, to subselect those for initiation, for example, of a treatment that have a very high risk. So if you go further to the next slide. So to sum up, so what do we believe makes our project unique? So we have really the intent to develop an AI-assisted digital twin screening platform to identify individuals at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease even before symptoms manifest. And we do this really using a unique combination of different data modalities and, of course, models that work on these data for disease risk identification. And overall, we hope that via doing this, we bring, let's say, diagnostics closer to the patient by examining the feasibility of using samples which can be obtained at home for biomarker analysis. And so this, we hope at the end of the day, will lead to a step change in the care pathway of early cognitive impairment. Yeah, thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you, Holger. Thank you very much for this insight. really interesting. Do we have concrete questions to Holger now? If not, there's one from Paula.
Thank you so much for the exciting presentation. I'm really curious about the different parameters that go into that digital twin. How many of them are routinely taken, and how many or which ones are ones that need to be specifically taken for predictome?
Yeah, so in essence, what is currently routinely taken is mainly things that are in the clinic. Yeah, so basically there is these CSF biomarkers. Yeah, amyloid beta and tau. So and there's PET screening or MRI. Yeah, so this is in essence what's done. Yeah, today, and everything else is in some sense something that we need to explore here. Yeah, so how well this could help at the end. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions? If not, thank you, Holger. See you later in our panel discussion. Now we go back into the room. We have Eduard Maron with us. Eduard is from Estonia. So we had 3 examples from Germany, and now we go over to Estonia.
Yeah.
We Germans, we are always jealous when we look to Estonia because what we have in research, you have in practice.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
this is always good, and we make now a point and go deeper into practice.
Yeah.
Eduard is psychiatrist, researcher, and your company DocuMental is a platform that enables patients to share their health data and get remote diagnosis and facilitate access to special treatments via telemonitoring, telemedicine. So we are keen to learn more about your project or your company.
Thank you very much, Oliver. And I'm really delighted to be here. Probably just briefly introduce myself. I'm psychiatrist and professor of Imperial College London, visiting professor, CEO of DocuMental and DocuMental Clinic, which is first digitalized digital mental health clinic. And I have for over 20 years of clinical practice. However, I started as neuroscientist, then I moved to clinical practice, and latest, probably last 10 years, doing digital technology, development of digital technology. So it was quite interesting journey. But today I would like to probably raise the question, we're talking about early identification of dementia, but probably we're still missing something very important. So this is my question, what we're missing. In the fact, we know that dementia is probably the most advanced mental health condition as compared to any other, because there's many biomarkers which we can use to diagnose dementia, to see progress of dementia, as compared to any other mental health disorder, for example, depression and anxiety disorder. We don't have validated biomarkers. Dementia has. And however, as we learned from today, and we have papers, a lot of papers, we already started to use AI technology, which helping to analyze these biomarkers, genetic biomarkers or neuroimaging biomarkers, and to improve identification of dementia, early identification, and to improve understanding about dementia progress, about dementia course, and probably just to try to find also new treatment targets. And this is, everything is good, it's really very promising, but in the fact, dementia is the end of the story. Unfortunately, every 4th person, even here, may have some cognitive dysfunctions in the future. So this is our future. But before that, every second may have at least one mental health disorders, which started from first day of the life. Autism, neurodevelopmental disorders, learning disability, ADHD, major depression, bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, so many other mental health disorders before that developing every particular day and affecting many, many millions of people. Why is it important? Because cognitive dysfunctions is not something very specific just for dementia. Practically all mental health disorders are accompanied by cognitive dysfunctions. I just try to show this slide. If you can see here, for example, so all of these disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, major depression, panic disorder, has exactly the same cognitive dysfunctions as dementia. Some of them have even more stronger, more severe cognitive dysfunctions as compared to dementia. Is it important? Yes, because some mental health disorders can contribute to development of dementia. For example, major depression. People who have depression, unfortunately, have very high risk for dementia. Why? Because of cytokines. This is immunological pathway cytokines which contribute to both to dementia and to depression. What is interesting, people who take an antidepressant medication, for example, SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, for many years, if they have risk for dementia, dementia develop 4 or 5 years later. So SSRIs postpone onset of dementia. So there's a huge link between other mental health disorders and dementia. So the question is, if you're talking about early identification of mental health disorders like dementia, first of all, we need to think about early identification of all mental health disorders. But here we have a huge problem because our healthcare system, which is not ideal, so the waiting list is too long. Many people don't have any chance to get support, assessment, clinical assessment, diagnosed because of waiting list. For example, in UK, every year 120,000 of people in hidden list, which means they never get support from mental health care professionals. Our systems is HR systems, very old-fashioned HR systems. I spoke to many colleagues also in Germany. What do you think about your HR system? Everyone just hate them. They say this is nonsense. This is absolutely non-effective. Just wasting my time because they developed for administrative tasks, not to bring your life in the next level to improve your quality of diagnosis or of assessment. And communication between patients and healthcare providers, unfortunately, is very fragmental. This is why every second patient stops taking medication. Even people with dementia or their relatives, they don't understand what they need to take, why they need to take this medication, why it's important to take this medication, because communication is not there where it's needed. So we believe that digital mental health can improve this situation because clinical decision support system may change all assessment procedure, may improve diagnostic journey, so people may get more precise diagnostic or phenotyping decisions on behalf of professionals. Access to mental health can improve significantly, for example, through telemedicine. We're using this, and thanks to COVID brought really something interesting and new to mental health. Communication through digital phenotyping tools based on chatbots, for example, can improve communication between healthcare providers and patients, just improve understanding why they need to take medication and why they need to follow progress of medication. So it sounds like it's future, but now actually no, it's already here. And DocuMental is the first platform, digital platform, which is already starting to use AI technology and all these standards. So what is our problem? They have the number of good standards produced by WHO, by European Commission, by American Association of Psychiatrists, European Association of Psychiatrists, so many standards, diagnostic, biomarkers, clinical scales, treatment guidelines, not used in clinical practice. Because we don't have platform which we implement these standards. And DocuMental, this is what it's doing. It's implementing these standards and bring into clinical practice. So improving assessment, improving quality of assessment, improving access to support, improving follow-up, making more proactive follow-up and more personalized, and those improving prediction of outcome. So how this works? This is what we're already using. We have like 3 stages of our workflow. First, we're starting from patients or from their relatives. 24/7, they may start to better understand what's going on by using app. Self-assessment, self-report app, which is available, so they can assess themselves, which through e-triage system just give you an outcome. Do you have some mental health problem? If yes, who is the best healthcare providers to support you? So we have also e-triage system, which also referring patients based on outcome to right healthcare providers. And when healthcare providers is like myself, meeting patients, I'm not starting from blank list. I understand everything about patients, what patients try to say to me. and I go through clinical decision support system, which is also assisting me, helping me. So I'm not missing phenotypes, I'm not missing right questions to be asked. So this is how we improve in quality of assessment and clinical decisions. And after that, system also helping us to make treatment plan, documentation, because we know that every psychiatrist wastes 50% of their time on documentation. So all documentation is done automatically by system. So it's really huge saving of time. And after visit, we're going to apply chatbot digital platforms, tools which help to follow up progress and communicate with clients when they're on medication. So this is what we're already using. And my last slides, I just showed you the first digital clinic, documental care, which is fully based on digital platforms, based on e-triage system, based on apps for patients, based on clinical decision support system, which is based on ICD-10, in future ICD-11 and DSM-5 American classifications. Already we also have digitalized pharmacological and psychotherapy models. So I'm not just thinking, okay, what the company was the last time talking about good medication. I follow guidelines when I prescribe medication. And up to date, we have more than 6,000 people, already our clients, 1,000 of them Ukrainian refugees, so what is quite important. So we already start to help Ukrainian people with mental health, and we see that access dramatically improved. So we're able to support people with clinical assessment within 1 week, instead of 3, 5, 6 months, as it usual in traditional mental health care system. And even we can shorten visit to 30 minutes and cover everything. High quality assessment, treatment plan, documentation, 50% of saving of time, my time. So I'm doing just 4 hours per day. So my colleagues are very jealous who are not using DocuMental, as you can understand this. So, and this is what is not future, this is already today here. And we're moving forward, and I believe that with AI technology and hopefully with very good partners, like here from Germany, so we're also jealous because you already started to do something interesting, we're very interested in this. And we can collaborate together and improve mental health, not just for dementia, but everyone with mental health issues. Thank you much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eduard. This was really impressive. Oh, we have questions. Yeah, I do not wonder that we have questions.
Hi, thank you. Great presentation. So everything is very, very, very nice what you all actually have shown, but we are not tackling very important issue. And I have a question how we are going to tackle it. That's primary care and before primary care, because most, as you mentioned in your presentation, most of the people actually don't know that they have some kind of mental challenges. Yeah. And after COVID, we are seeing that, for example, very simple thing as depression is going up more and more, and actually people, they just don't know that it's depression. They think that's autoimmune disease or long COVID or it has been called in very many names, but actually it's mental and it's simple depression, which is curable, of course. Absolutely. But people don't know how to go, and they are living 2, 5, 6, 7 years in that state. So how we are going to tackle that?
Yeah, it's absolutely a good question, an ideal question. I love this. And first of all, what I can say that fortunately, people with mental health more educated now. And for example, I was criticized, I was saying, Eduard, why do you think the people will engage with self-assessments? They don't want to just assess themselves. But actually what I'm hearing from my clinical practice, they're saying it was brilliant. It's helping me to understand what's going on with me because it's destigmatized. It's helping them to understand what problem I have and how it's called. And after that, if we can use again e-triage system, we can reduce burden of healthcare system because I want to be rude. I don't want to say I don't want to see people with mild depression. I would like to see everyone, but mild depression is something which can be dealt by psychologists or by GP doctors. And GP doctors cannot deal with bipolar disorder, but in the current situation, nobody knows who should do what in next stage, what should be done. So this is why DocuMental, platform like DocuMental, when referring to right healthcare providers, can really improve all this journey. I will see only patients I understand. For example, I'm dealing with bipolar disorder. I will see people with bipolar disorder. So people with mild depression, probably, if they want, they can come to me. I mean, like exception, but not in the routine. In routine, every doctor will be deal with own phenotype and they educated on. So I think this is how we will improve, even now, currently, when it's increasing number of all mental health disorders, but we still don't understand how to, how to delineate, how to understand in the group, you should go this way, you should go this way, and you should go third way. So I think this is the only way how we can improve access and, and the quality. I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I can maybe a little bit elaborate a little bit more. We just talked with one neuro doctor, sorry. And we came to the conclusion that actually no physical, so all those psychological problems are coming out of physical problems in the brain. So basically, you not only have to have a digital tools which are like before diagnostic, but when you are diagnosing it, there's a huge problem that psychiatrists and psychologists are not using MRI and brain scans to actually scan and to understand that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And this is why we need new HR system more integrated with digital platforms and these HR system which have an also integrated genetic biobanks, MRIs, computer tomography. All of this is just fragmental, and this is our problem. I'm a psychiatrist, can just see clinical symptoms and think this is depression. No, it's not depression only. This is organic depression, exactly what you're saying, exactly what you mentioned, because this person may have some endocrinological conditions. And I have no idea about this, and I prescribe wrong medication for these patients. But we're talking now about very important area field. I think the revolution when we really sort it out this.
There's one other question.
I hope it will be fast question. My question from the 6,000 patient that you have right now, is there is a dropout patient, that the patient they started and then they didn't continue? And if there is,
it's a good question.
If there is this,
in
which phase? In before, during, or after?
Okay. 95% of them completed self-assessment. I was very happy to learn about this because I was really worried about how we start this personalized person-based approach if person is not agree to use this app. So they using 95% using in full range of self-assessment. If you're talking about dropout, so what the plan is for DocuMental, with psychiatric clinics, we would like to make full assessment, full treatment plan, and refer client to GP doctor for renewal of prescription and follow-up. So dropout is very high. Why? Because people happy. They move to GP doctors and come and meet back if they have some problem with medication. So I'm not worried about dropout. I would be happy. I'm saying them. I hope I not see you more because I hope you really got everything from me and now somebody else will help you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Eduard. We have to go further. We have another presentation from Estonia, but we have it online. Aaviksoo. I hope I pronounce it well. He's working for the Heba clinic here in Estonia. And you have extensive experience in digital health, more than 25 years. And I think you have also an example that shows that digital health is also routine practice here in Estonia. And yeah, we are keen to hear about your profile at Heba Clinic. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, we see you.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me also loud and clear. So I'm very sorry I can't be with you today, but I hope this won't be the last moment. I've learned already, even though I have been in the digital health domain for 25 years and a little bit beyond that. I'm trained as a medical doctor, but been bridging between healthcare and IT, yeah, for the most of my life. And I am very much about innovation, which means that putting new ideas into practice. The use case that I'm presenting today really is much less mature than any of what you have heard so far. However, I believe that it's at least to me, it seems a very nice continuation. How organizations, the clinic, and now there's a spin-off, can actually make use of already what has been done in earlier projects, research, and also applications. So without further ado, I'll start from explaining what the background is. So the clinic was started now more than 5 years ago. It was started from the same kind of frustration that Dr. Maron just mentioned, that you work in a public hospital and you can't do things the way that you would like to. So that what an entrepreneur and doctors are doing, well, they make their own clinic then. So that's how Heba Clinic happened to be. It is an occupational health clinic, but since the very early days, working with the data has been most important part. So that in my mind, occupational health physicians are the only specialists who are every day working with kind of active population health management. So that when the family doctors are working with individual patients, we have been constantly trying to work with the whole cohorts, but that also gives new opportunities so that we are combining through our digital tool solutions for individual patients, mostly for preventive or early detective phases, but then also advising employers, what can they do? And based on this, and yes, it has been already mentioned that mental health issues skyrocketed during and after the COVID, we started to think, okay, can we make use of the data and the platform that we have been developing and do something really innovative? And so we did we found partners from the University of Tartu and then also some other technology partners. And as of July this year, so this is basically a 2-month-old project, we're working on a platform which combines the existing technologies into neurosymbolic AI agent framework, so that we are making use of multimodal biomarkers and not only about the human itself, but also about their behavioral aspects, and then try to work through something what we call your affect and cognitive function digital twin. Well, yes, we are collecting data using sensors and mobile phone for the time being, but we are discovering every day what are the new opportunities and technologies. We heard today about the voice, which I do agree is increasingly seen as probably one of the greatest biomarkers, which is in a way easy to capture, but which actually carries a lot of information disregarded so far. And then we are using not just single AI agent, but actually a full crew. So we are using conversational AI to engage with the individual, and then analytical AI to analyze that. But we are combining the analytical information that we capture into those conversations to actually capture more information. There are self-assessment tests, and there is background embedded information that we collect on top of that. So in the end of the day, the idea and the hope is, say, we are starting our clinical trials next October with a target to reach 10,000 to 50,000 patients over the period of 1 year. And after that, to have a deep psychological profiling available to everyone, so that it's not only the Google or Facebook who knows who you are, but actually you know it yourself, and you can make decisions based on that, either with the help of clinical professional or then we believe will be also other digital tools that can make use of that insights about you. And when it comes to the Alzheimer's, so the use cases we have been discussing with the neurodegenerative diseases is that, as I said already, that measuring effect and cognition, we can provide platform which is capable of real-time cognitive state monitoring. We heard that this could be combined with various modalities. Second is that we also have already introduced our own several cognitive and psychological assessment tools, but the platform enables to tailor them to, for instance, either for clinical trials, or then there could be other solutions, applications that might make use of that. And the idea is that this agent crew is capable of combining a seamless human-like conversation with the sometimes normative or even rule-based analytics which is behind that. You can use it for detection and analysis of behavioral changes with the neuropsychological testing. In addition to what Dr. Maron just explained, you can start measuring not only the actual answers, but say response times or delay, or if we're using also with the facial recognition or the facial imaging analytics together with the voice, we can combine that data with the actual, let's say, cognitive processing, which is then measured through standardized testing. Since the platform is in the first place, and I like very much, once again, the link between the psychology and effect related mental situations with the cognitive and neurodegenerative diseases, combining those as a support platform is also a use case which currently is the primary focus of our research. You can use it to measure the cognitive decline over time. And last but not least, if, and this has been mentioned, the platform is validated, it is based on ethically collected data, we can explain how it works, then also working towards more personalized cognitive training and intervention is something which is in our mind. So I will stop here with my intervention. I hope there will be some room for discussion as well. So once again, thank you for the organizers to inviting me and being part of a very insightful and educated session for somebody like myself and our team.
Yes, it's really impressive how far you are already with your technology and how user-friendly it looks and it can be. Do we have concrete questions now? If not, we save some questions for the discussion round. Okay, then we step back here into the room. We have Ella with us. Ella comes from Germany. So we go back to the German perspective. Yes, she is co-founder and managing director of the company Nocturne. Yep. This is a startup that emerged from the Charité University Clinic in Berlin and specialized in diagnosis using retinal imaging. And you can explain us in detail what this means and what retinal imaging can do for early diagnosis of Alzheimer or other diseases.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. May I have my slide, please? So I'm a bit like, maybe similar like Ian Atkinson. I worked many years at the interface between neurologists and technical people, but my background is technical, so it's a bit mirrored experience. And I think we heard many ways of assessing different. No, that's not mine. You had it under KI elements, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, we have seen them.
Yeah, we have seen them, so they are there. I think it's very interesting the fact that the way we started back then to develop these retinal images for neurodegenerative diseases was that you have so many. Yeah, okay, no worries. All of these diseases are very complex, so we don't really understand exactly the pathology, the way different biomarkers that we developed change over time, and or how they interact. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And I think what we realized back then is that for the moment you have certain ways of looking into these diseases that are very complex. And we heard it so many times, just simply looking into the future, we don't have the option of not having more concrete ways or analyzing with the help of AI all these aspects regarding these diseases, because we won't, as a healthcare system, be able to deal with the burden that this will create in the future. And the retina itself, which is a very interesting aspect about the retina, is like it develops from the brain in the embryonic phase. That means that you have many, many cells, structures that you know in the brain, and the whole processes of everything that's happening directly in a structure that is very easily possible to be imaged. And that is something called the optical coherence tomography. So this is the device that you see there. You just simply look into this device. It takes 2 minutes to take the scan. And it looks like, if I can start, the video. I'm not sure. Maybe you can. Okay. So what you can see in the OCT retina scan is that it literally looks like an MRI. So you look into the deep tissue of your retina. In 2 minutes you have the scan. And what you can see in the retina itself is that, and this is in micrometers, so we are really looking in micrometers precision. You can see different changes in different parts of the retina that correlate with cognitive function, with even amyloid beta and tau in the brain, even in the retina, in the post-mortem retina of humans. It was shown that you have these substances present. And I think the most important aspect of this is that we can measure. So we talked about the possibility of looking and seeing from the depression, from all these maybe softer biomarkers, but here you can combine this with something like Nicklas is doing, with something measurable. And I think this is the future. So if you look into the future and how we can deal with this, then we definitely need something, first of all, that is giving you the option of screening, which also like not only to be able to put like to give the possibility to assess much earlier and include in these trials people that are affected at the very beginning of the disease. And secondly, to be able to also monitor this like at home or on a phone or just with the retinal images. Now you even have a headset that you can use at home to image this retina. So, and I think including this in what you said, that is so frustrating also for neurologists, like I measure something, what does it tell me? How can I measure it more often? What is happening in between those huge time pods when I do a PET scan or an MRI or a blood testing? And all these possibilities, especially also with the retina. And I think since we are talking about combined diseases, it will probably be a combination of speech recognition, of imaging very fast of the retina that is like a mirror for the brain, and all these other measurements that you can take and then assess using AI. And I just want to finish it like we started looking in neurodegenerative diseases like multiple sclerosis, but you have it also in schizophrenia, in different depressions, like the retina surprisingly is changing in all of these diseases. And it's very interesting now that there is and there is a big study now happening in the US. It started in 2020. It's called Retinal Atlas Imaging for Alzheimer. So what they're doing is they're looking at 5-year follow-up from like people with no cognitive impairment, people with low risk cognitive impairment and high risk in cognitive impairment. The first studies have showed that you can differentiate between the groups. And now they're looking to, with the whole imaging and the whole plasma and all these protein biomarkers to see when do these change, how often at the time point you can look and how you can detect. And this is in the retina already 10, 20 years before anything happens clinically. So before you get a mild cognitive impairment. And I think this is very interesting. And to just close with something that I think it's always a question for us, but also for the people doing this study, where do I want to assess this retinal imaging? So first of all, this happens already at an ophthalmologic office. So most of you who had something or wear glasses or at some point you probably had this assessment. But the question remains, like even ophthalmologists, they are seeing so many patients a day, so they don't really have time to do another thing, even if it's pushing a button and do an extra analysis. And then the answer that most of the people see at the moment is the optometrist, or even when you buy glasses. Because this is something where you can introduce something like a screening kind of tool. And you could also have it like, you know, you go do your grocery shopping. That is like a bit far-fetched, but it could actually work. And where you have the glasses you can do a quick screening, like it takes like really 2 minutes. And then you can send it into the car. You get the report at home on your phone or whatever. Or even the GP gets your GP, or you give access to your data. So this is kind of how people envision this kind of screening options, and having this very easy device, it would be also an option to just detect very early, is there something neurological happening in your retina? Should you be sent to other physician? Which physician? So there are a lot of open questions, but I think it's possible. And I will leave you with that I truly believe that clinical decision support tool and figuring out who in the value chain should have different clinical decision support tools, AI-based, I think it's just, from me, feasible, and it should be the future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ella. Do we have concrete questions to Ella? If not, I will invite all participants here in the room to come on stage, and I will ask Paula, or seventh and last, but not least, panelist, to open the discussion with us. Paula, you already moderated yesterday a session on AI with some really relevant insights. Not everybody has the possibility to hear it. Perhaps from your point of view, what is your vision on AI, and what was your learning from yesterday, where we talked in general, and now we go into deep Alzheimer practice. Yeah. Please, not easy job, but perhaps you can start.
It's not easy, definitely, but it was incredibly exciting to listen to all of this.
Maybe we put the name of the panelist on the slide, not my slide. I mean, I'm happy to have it, but still.
But I will enjoy your slide, don't worry.
I mean, it's a nice one. But
so I have this privilege of, listening and learning from you. But as background, I'm actually coming from cardiovascular and renal diseases, and I have been working on that for several years, and been several different learnings on how non-communicable chronic diseases have a lot of connections, and Alzheimer's, and when we talk about dementia and so forth. And there's a lot of overlap. Yesterday we talked about, for example, physician trust questions. We had a physician there who was a radiologist who, instantly divided the whole hall with like, well, we are ready for the solutions. Where are they? What is this about? This is about the trust question, right? There are a lot of solutions. There was another person in the hall who was just saying, like, we are already in the growth phase of like radiology AI. Like, we have so many solutions. What are we talking about? And this certification, a comment that came from Doreen in the beginning, saying, this is just, it's a little signal of human psychology, authority is being trusted, right? So certification is a sign of little authority. So I'm a product strategist, a product developer, so I always try to think through the eyes of, okay, the end user, and how are they, you know, like how are they becoming comfortable with the solution that they're using. And as a, you know, when I was listening to this clinician yesterday, I was just thinking like, wow, okay, so one, they don't have these specific frameworks available to assess those solutions. So it is really up to the vendors to coach them and try to make it understandable why their claims, why their evidence, why, you know, like why this AI risk score even makes sense. And kind of like when we talked yesterday about the AI Act, it has a lot of rules, right? And we might be partly frustrated, but then again, it tries to make things safe and effective, right? Like when we tie it together with the MDR, and this explainability question comes into play. Like all of these solutions that we discussed today, if you give it to a clinician, for example, do they understand where this comes from, like this type of an assessment? This is as relevant for cardiovascular risk prevention, for example, because we've been developing the same thing. And then the other topic, which also came up yesterday, was this question of platforms and interoperability. And this is the part that is so juicy for me, because I am just, you know, I've been working together for years with different cardiologists in development, and several years now also with nephrologists. Turns out, you know, heart and kidney have a lot of connections, and so does the brain and the heart, right? Brain has one of the most intricate a group of vessels that is really like fed by the heart, pumping oxygen and nutrients into it. And we know how many different risk factors are overlapping for a lot of these diseases. Can we perhaps find parameters, a group of parameters that are overlapping, you know, for many of them to get the biggest bang for the buck if we talk about data and AI, which is all about efficiency and better decision making to find and then do earlier screening for all of those diseases. And this is really not something that is completely like utopic, because me and there's a development partner also in the hall, we've been, you know, working on that, for example, for chronic kidney disease, where we took a bunch of EHR parameters and we went down to 15 parameters that are routinely available already. So they're cheap, you know, it's super important. And could we find for Alzheimer's also, which is dementia, you know, is one of the late stages if you think about type 2 diabetes, that can kind of go there, really, you know. So can we perhaps like work together across those therapeutic areas? So in this AI realm that we have now, to find earlier ways to screen all of these patients and bring really forward the most high-risk patients to the GP, and perhaps redefine, you know, thank you so much for the question of the primary care, that we can redefine the role of primary care so they can really tell the patients who are at the highest risk, okay, hey, you need more personalized approach.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. I forgot to introduce you. You are an Estonian living in Berlin, Germany, and working for a Bayer company. Yeah. So you bring both perspective with you. And thank you for your overview and the wrap up a little bit of yesterday and today. So we are running out of time. It's really a pity, but I would try to ask the last question that everybody has the possibility to answer. I learned that we have three main activities for AI in healthcare systems. One is screening, early detection. The other is decision support for doctors. And the last, and this is really new, not new, but it was really clear for me now, it's really an instrument for patient empowerment, because we can bring so much to the patient, too much diagnosis, making it at home and bringing the patient in a new position in the healthcare system. What do you think? What is the main use case for AI, and how can we bring it closer to the healthcare system? Because what I still miss is what are the concrete interfaces to the normal healthcare system, to the GP and to the specialized doctor. How can they deal with all those possibilities. Perhaps we start with Doreen from Greifswald. So how can we bring AI into the healthcare system? What is the main aspect?
So to answer your first question, I think the third topic is for me the most interesting part on the short run, to empower patients, giving them the information that count for them, that are relevant to them and inform them. Yeah. And the interfaces, yeah, well, it's a hard question. So I guess it's a little bit country specific. And in Germany, we are talking about the intersections between the sections many, many times, and it's an unsolved problem right now. But digitalization at all is one solution, I guess, and that's the first step before we think about AI as interface and over all the sections, ambulatory, stationary, and daily life of patients.
Okay. So I can give the question to you. You have your hand raised.
Thank you. I wanted to really congratulate you, or actually thank you so much for this question, because this is exactly what we have been feeling here at the Heba Clinic, but also me personally working earlier. Digital technology and now the AI have this capability of bring patients, professionals, but not just clinicians, but also, let's say, researchers into the common room and enable them to work together so that the same information space, this digital twin or whatever we call it, but you can translate that for the specific context to the specific individual. And I think this is one of the greatest untapped potentials so far with the digital technologies. And yes, I'm very keen on using the most cutting-edge AI tools. But indeed, if we can make the IT to work for the benefit of this collaborative healthcare system, then I think we make a big progress and great service to the mankind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Holger, what do you think? How can we bring the digital twin to the GP office and make him really useful for the GP?
Yeah, I think there are different dimensions to that. So one is in essence already what Doreen pointed out. So digitalization is the key, yeah, and the access to data, yeah, so which is of course still in many countries, specifically in Germany, an issue. And the other aspect is of course then models that use these data, yeah, so and may at the end of the day be integrated in such digital twin platforms. But of course, one has to see so that the algorithms behind need regulatory approval, right? So if they can be used in clinical routine. So, and this is currently really a certain challenge, I would say. Yeah. So, specifically also given the legislation that we have in Europe. Yeah. So, which has as I've learned, horizontal as well as vertical dimensions. So there is, on one hand, for example, the GDPR and the medical device regulation, but now also vertically the AI Act coming into play. Yeah. So this is very complex, in fact. Yeah. So, and I think specifically for smaller companies, bringing such a product actually on the market with these regulatory hurdles is not easy, I would say, at least. Yeah. So it requires quite some financial also resources. Yeah? So therefore, I think maybe also the European Union as a whole and funding bodies should really think how to support this process overall. Yeah? Given that at the moment, I think we still see that the majority of what we are doing in this field never reaches the patient, but ends up just in certain nice papers also. Yeah. So, but we of course clearly want to go further.
Yeah, but this would be a pity. And Nicklas, your instrument is really brilliant because it's not intervening to the patient and so easy to use, but perhaps too easy to be useful for a doctor in clinical routine. What do you think? Is it you are focusing on clinical trials, but can you bring it to the GP office?
Yeah, I was thinking about this when we were talking about this, because 7 years ago when we started the company, the first thing we tried is selling it to GPs, basically. It's the first kind of route we went to. We registered a medical device and everything. And I thought about it now, and I think in the last 7 years, I think nothing changed in Alzheimer's diagnosis for GPs, nothing at all. I think we're exactly at the point we were 7 years ago. And I think I've heard many different perspectives from health system leaders who think about Alzheimer's disease for whole health systems in the US, basically. And some of them have basically given up on GPs in this. This might all change with disease-modifying therapies being available and having more of a reason kind of to diagnose this. Because right now, the maintaining sentiment for GPs is, why would I do that? Kind of, because I don't have anything to treat these people, right? Why would I diagnose them at this stage? So my very strong opinion is it's not the tools that are lacking. There are tools out there that are validated medical devices with lots of evidence behind them. It's really just getting that into practices is lots of work, and potentially there's no economic model that reimburses this right now. So even if there are reimbursement structures, it's still, we see so much work to, through them, still educate doctors. And there's no, if you compare it to drugs, for example, if you have a positive approval and you have market access somewhere, there's a very good chance that they're going to make money off this. Same is not true for medical devices. There's still so much work kind of working the market afterwards. And yeah.
Okay. And Ella, coming to your diagnosis to go, retina diagnosis, this could be a tool for screening really a whole population, because as you mentioned, everybody goes to the eye doctor. Eye doctor. And so is it really possible to include it in the patient pathway? Did you thought about this?
So we actually, a bit of a similar, from manufacturer to manufacturer. We went in 2018, 2019 to a lot of ophthalmologists, and there are early adopters that are interesting. It's more interesting from a perspective of, because they are also having a business, and they are like, especially the doctors who have the practice. As an eye doctor, they're also thinking about it in terms of a business. I want to earn. So it was interesting I think for us, it was very surprising that at the end, it was very interesting for high-class offices. And what I mean by that is where people are actually willing to pay to have a screening, to just check their overall health. And I think this has definitely changed in numbers from 2019, because many people are more health and lifestyle consciousness. They are more looking into, I really want to age well, and this is like an opportunity for many things when you think about screening. Now, I agree, it's not really, like we have so many stakeholders, like who should pay for it, and obviously this is a limited number of offices and practices and people who are doing this. But even the interviews, and let's say like screening for glaucoma, which is still not reimbursed, but it's pay out of the pocket in Germany, which is crazy because we have such a good health insurance system, right, compared to other countries. It's interesting to see that people are willing to have this starting with their 40s, like in a high number.
Yeah.
And it's not so expensive. So I think probably it's something that comes and from different, let's say, talking about empowerment of the patient. I think this is a very important and underestimated factor of the healthcare system in many things.
I'm so curious about that, because I wonder how B2C market has been. But
so I'm not in the B2C, but I can tell you that it's pushed, like neurologists that we work for example, we work a lot with multiple sclerosis patients. These are patients that start their disease in their 30s, so they really want to have it in check. So they go there and say, no, I want this medication. No, I know this side effects. No, I want to have a child in 5 years. No, I want to do this. So I think depending on the age demographic, you definitely have also patients saying, no, I want that.
Okay, last question to Eduard. So your system could be a parallel system to the normal healthcare system, because it works without doctors or only small doctor input. Is this a way you're thinking for mental health, where we have long waiting lists and a lot of frustrations of patients? Could this be a parallel system, easy to use and
absolutely? I probably may just say the reason why I moved break from UK to Estonia, because in 2014 I told them, just my colleagues in NHS, why not to digitalize mental health. And they told me, Eduard, we're very traditional, so forget about digitalization. I will think, okay, I have no time to argue with you, move to Estonia to develop digital platform. In 2015, they officially said, so we need to digitalize everything in mental health. And last year, I came across with one paper, which was, they draw a beautiful scheme how mental health, emergency mental health should be developed. They put all together AI technology like clinical decision support system, e-triage system, self-assessment, follow-up. I was seeing this picture, I was thinking, wow, this beautiful hypothetical picture, what actually in Estonia already is done and already in the US. So I think this is future. And this is exactly, I'm very happy that people, even in the UK, start to think exactly the same way I was saying them many, many years ago. And I think a lot of frustration will be gone and just disappeared after digitalization would be really in the practice, as DocuMental showed, demonstrated, because we're hearing from people, they're very happy by this approach, and they're saying, listen, this is 21st century, why we still using tradition when we have such beautiful platform? And probably my last recollection I would like to share with you, in 2018, there was interesting paper with title saying, why telemedicine didn't make a revolution in mental health. We know what happened after COVID. So telemedicine is everywhere. So when we're talking about digital mental health, AI technology and mental health, I think there's not more titles why it's not making a revolution. It's already done revolution. It's already here. It's already available for using.
Okay, thank you very much. We are looking to Estonia, being jealous what is possible here, and thank you very much for this great example. So, session is over. 5 minutes too late, sorry for this, but thank you for being with us until this afternoon. And for me, it was really interesting, such a huge overview about AI possibilities. I'm sure we will have a follow-up session next time with ScanBalt, and happy to invite all you to our next meeting. And thank you for being part of it virtually and here on stage.